Oh, can they hear us? I bet you we have to mute. Hello.
Wow, Marianne, you made me feel like I could sing. And I was about to break out in song, Cameron. I don't want to run you away. This is indeed the day that the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. Cameron, this day has been a long day coming. Long day coming. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. Good morning, my Cameron family. We are actually here, and we are there. Because today and yet again, we are launching a new platform for worship. And it is not either or one or the other, it is both and. Thus, it is our pleasure today to welcome you to the official launching of hybrid worship at Cameron United Methodist Church in Denver. We are in person and we are on Zoom. Thank you so much for coming, and already you have made this day incredibly special. Now, as you know, typically, it's the worship leader, the liturgist, that does the welcome and the call to worship, but because this day is her and historical, there is a lot to be said to prepare us for this day. So in the language of Facebook, I caution you that this is a long post. The pandemic is not over. And so we want you to know that we are committed to your safety. So all worship leaders are vaccinated. Me, the liturgist, the pianist, the music director, the choir members, all of us are vaccinated. The choir participants are vaccinated, yet they will sing masked. As another layer of protection, we are asking that everyone here wears a mask, whether vaccinated or not, and to practice physical distancing. And I want you to note that I say physical distancing. We are not socially distanced because we relate to each other and we are a communal people, but we will maintain physical distance. We also know that it can sometimes be difficult to express our COVID safety preferences with friends, family, strangers. So we are providing color-coded necklaces to help you communicate what is best for you. If you are okay with touching and hugs and close proximity, we invite you to wear the green necklaces. If you are on the fence or know that for sure you are not quite ready for all of that, then we invite you to wear red. You will note today that I am wearing red, not because I don't want to hug you, I long to hug you, but I and my family are caretakers for someone beyond the age of 80, and so we take extra precautions. And also, I did not want those who need to wear red to feel alone. Finally, we are trying to be as contact-free as possible, so we will not pass an offering plate, yet we want you to give. And we will not distribute hard copy bulletins. As I said before, COVID and its friends, the variants, is not over. So we invite all of us to do our parts to be safe and to protect each other. Amen? Now, as we bravely walk into this new era in the life of Cameron, we walk with the overarching theme of rooted and flourishing, living into Cameron's future. And for the month of September, we will focus our attention on being rooted in the greatness of our sacred past, rooted in compelling values, rooted in lessons learned, rooted in the courage and bravery of many visionaries and great leaders who came before us. And today, one of those visionaries is with us, and he will be blessing us with the homily and historical reflections. Reverend Bill Kirton. Reverend, amen.
Ancient wisdom. Is it so ancient? 131 years of Cameron United Methodist Church? Oh, I don't know. I like to think it's just a snapshot in time. I'm going to read a little piece for you, recalling the story of this wonderful place. Historic Cameron Church. It boasts the longest continuing Methodist congregation in South Denver. Cameron traces its roots back to 1888, when its 5 charter members and a circuit-riding preacher by the name of John Collins struck a deal. He would become the first minister of this church, and they would help build that fellowship. For a time, Cameron was a church without a building. However, less than 2 years later, construction was completed on a new church at the corner of Iowa and Washington. It still stands today, right on that corner. Now, they got that all done for the princely sum of $3,000. The building was named after Civil War Union General Robert Cameron, who gave a sizable donation of $250. And so, by 1892, with the church built, Cameron was able to support a full-time pastor. During this time, Cameron kept growing along with the South Denver community, expanding its role. By January 1909, the church board realized they needed a new place. They began exploring of the potential for adding space to this church. So, excavation began at the end of the year at a new location. Yep, right here, the southeast corner of Iowa and Pearl. So, the Cameron Church of today was designed by noted church architect Thomas Barber. I believe he designed a number of churches not only throughout this state, but throughout this nation. And I think one of the churches he designed was the Hollywood United Methodist Church in California. Now, the unusual thing about this church, it features this beautiful, beautiful domed ceiling. And at a point, the highest point, I believe it rises to 150 feet. Frank Watkins, whose family still operates the Watkins Stained Glass Studio, he designed the 4 large stained glass windows that overlook Iowa. Okay? And the University of Denver Chancellor, Henry Bucktel, he laid the church cornerstone on March 9th, 1913. I believe it's right back there. You can see it on the outside of the building. The new building was built for the grand sum of $35,000. Now, when you think about it in today's terms, in today's dollars, that's almost $1 million. Now, the new church more than doubled the capacity of the first, with the sanctuary able to seat 500 persons, and the Sunday school area downstairs accommodating 400 more. The church even formed its own orchestra in 1915, And I guess that's really a precursor of all the musical endeavors we've continued to this day, including our friends with Retrogress. Kathy, thank you. Throughout the years, Cameron has survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, most recently a global pandemic. Yet the doors remain open to this long-standing centerpiece of the South Denver community. Today, Cameron is a proudly progressive church, striving to include all persons, without regard to sexual orientation, race, nationality, gender, family configuration, ethnic background, economic circumstances, difference in ability, culture, or age. And yes, Cameron depends on you, all of you seated before me, all of you online, all of its congregants, to define it, to support it, and to lead it into the future, just as it has for the past 131 years. Thank you.
Reverend Bill Kirton is a living legend, as you well know. He retired from the United Methodist Church as clergy after 40 years of service. He is a former pastor of this great church from 1992 to 2008. And from what I understand, much of the very core and the soul of who we are today have much to do with the leadership of Reverend Kirton and Dr. Bonnie. Today, it is our pleasure to welcome you, Reverend Kirton, your family, Dr. Bonnie, your son, Scott, and your daughter-in-law and love, Anne. Thank you so much for joining us.
I have been vaccinated for several things. Because, you all need this kind of inside influence. So Mike took part of my sermon, and that will make it shorter. So I just wanted to share a couple of other details in the fact that this congregation, the development of South Denver was heavily influenced by Methodists. The University of Denver was established by Methodists. Originally it was Colorado Seminary, and it was initiated, one of the founders, by John Evans, after whom Evans Avenue is named. And he was appointed territorial governor of Colorado by Abraham Lincoln in 1862. Now, there is a chapel on the CU or DU campus, Evans Chapel, which is named after him. Now, I also wanted to mention that this church was dedicated by the Reverend Thomas Corwin Iliff, who was a cousin of John Wesley Iliff, the namesake of the Iliff School of Theology. There's another notable Methodist after whom a South Denver street is named, as well as an elementary school, Francis Asbury. If one enters the south entrance to Asbury Elementary School, which is on Asbury Street, right above the door, assuming it's still there, is an image of Francis Asbury, who was an English lay preacher who started the Methodist movement in this country in the 18th century. I would like to say one more thing about the construction of this church that was finished in 1913. The roof has been leaking since 1913. But thanks to Emily Ward, it's not going to leak for another 100 years. Now, our coming to Cameron was inspired by our attendance, Bonnie's and my coming here, by our attendance at Swallow Hill concerts, many of which were held in this room at that time. Now, Bonnie and I enjoyed the concerts, but what got our attention was the place. We sensed a kind of vibrancy similar to that which we experienced in holy places like Chartres Cathedral in France, or stone circles in Britain and Scotland, or the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Now, if you've ever been to the Temple Mount, you will notice that when the Orthodox rabbis pray at the temple, they pray with their whole body. It's a kind of ritualized dance. Their whole body is involved in the prayer. It's kind of like choirs in black churches where there's this movement back and forth. So that's an indication of the presence of this holiness, what I'm going to call the soul. What we experienced, I think, Bonnie and I, in these concerts and being in this room, we're going to call the Cameron soul. Now, after attending several concerts, Bonnie and I were called by this soul to come here. We decided that we would leave more comfortable, I say comfortable, more financially lucrative appointments in the Methodist Church, and we would establish a relationship with this place. Curious as to what resurrection might look like, we asked to be assigned here to a congregation that at that time appeared to be on life support. For us, the challenges had been that many churches prefer boredom. I think a lot of people go to church to take a nap. And what happens is that they lock the soul of their congregations in a basement closet. And they put the key in the secretary's desk with a sign that says, "Do not touch." And sometimes if you try to steal a key, the secretary, and I've experienced this, the secretary will slap your hand. Don't touch that. We do not want any excitement in this church, because it's never happened here and we don't want it. Now, the Jungian psychologist Robert Sardello, who was my teacher as well as a teacher of Dr. John Lee, describes the soul as the imaginative possibilities of our nature. The imaginative possibilities of our nature. Art, religion, faith begin in the imagination. The architect that designed this building and the artist who created the windows, and thank you, Mike, for mentioning the Watson Stained Glass Studios, which began in London in 1750, that company, it still exists. They imagined this as a place where congregants could experience what the German theologian Rudolf Otto called the mysterium tremendum, or the great mystery of God. Now, when Linda Ray cooks, she begins by imagining a delicious pie or cake. The combination of ingredients combined with her loving care creates something delicious but mysterious. Taste and smell are indescribable. How does one describe a taste or a smell? It's the great mystery of the soul of the earth. Now, in the beginning, God imagined and created a garden filled with indescribable creatures, including those who were like the God self, human beings. who themselves could imagine and create. Now, it is said that Eve sinned by eating an apple. The word apple's not actually there, but anyway, an apple. Now, I think the problem in the garden was bad food. All they had to eat was either vegan or sugar-free or maybe gluten-free. Bad food. Now, Eve's sin, I believe, was that she imagined apple pie with whipped cream. You know, whipped cream that kind of dribbles down the side of the piece of pie? She imagined that. And so, you know, she just couldn't help herself. She said, "Come on, Adam, I'll grab some apples and you milk the cow, and we're going to cook something that is sinfully delicious." That's what happened. My interpretation. Now, the earth soul is constantly imagining and creating. When I planted my garden, I imagined juicy, red, sexy tomatoes rising up like a resurrection from the soul of the earth. Did I say that? My soul is getting out of control. Now, when that closet door opens, the one in the basement where the soul has been, that can attract a lot of soulful people who do soulful things, like Elvis swinging his hips, or Billie Holiday singing her soul songs. I'll share a few examples. Gary Carter started to play his flute and sing those songs that come from his soul. Now, Mike Hyman appeared and brought Elvis with him. Andrew Trunthio and Jeannie Creighton started displaying their creations, as did a lot of other folks. Mary Streisig shared her beauty by sustaining the women's solstice celebration. And Dan Streisig made sure that the neighborhood knew that the soul was alive here by placing his banners at the entrance every Sunday morning. And Lynn Gillum spent days and nights upgrading the sound system so that the soul could be heard. The Denver International Jazz Film Festival was held in this sanctuary for 2 or 3 years running, and it portrayed the African American soul in the form of jazz. Max Donaldson was a major player in that effort. Charlie Davidson took up an instrument and played his music. Marty Davidson and Cindy Hyman shared their financial management skills by taking charge of the accounting, and Jim Bowles continued his decades-long contributions record keeping. And I tell you, the soul needs lots of financial management. With Bonnie's ritual experience as a guide, church service often got a little bit out of hand. With rock and roll and foot stomping and even an occasional shout. Can you imagine a shout in a church made up mostly of white people? It's just unthinkable. Now, this room became a place where community issues that affect good soul. I done when a Pearl Street merchant who didn't appear to be very religious to me, and I don't think he'd ever been to church, he said to me, "You know, Bill, Cameron is the spiritual center of this community. I was blown away. And you know, unlike some churches, we didn't call a committee meeting or vote on any of this. It just happened. And to top it all off, more recently, the Cameron Soul welcomed our soul-filled and joyful pastor, Reverend Dr. Valerie Jackson. When I learned that Dr. Jackson had come to Cameron, I knew I had to come home. She, like the soul, is enough to knock your socks off. And what was my role in all of this? The only thing I did was to steal the key and unlock the closet. That's all I did. Now, I love you, Cameron, because your soul liberated mine. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. Imagine, create is my modus operandi. Now remember this, my new and old Cameron friends. Don't lock your soul in the closet. Imagine, create, play your music, pray your prayers, move your hips, once in a while, get wild. My recommendation to this community is, don't drown in the chaos of these difficult times. Be bold. Start a Noah project. Start a Noah project.